Dr. Dhaval Patel, MD DNB neurosurgeon.
Good morning. On top of today is the recent advance in management of acute hemorrhagic stroke, a physician point of view. I invite Dr. Dhaval B. Patel, neurosurgeon, on a stage for these topics. Dhaval Patel has done his DNB neurosurgery from New Delhi. He is currently working in a Surat as a neuro and spine surgeon. He is director of the United Green Hospital, Adajan, director of Unity Hospital, Parbat Patia, and his clinic is Surat Neuro Clinic at Majura Gate. His neurological skill basically in a trauma for advanced management of brain and spine trauma. He is doing good oncology in neurological point of view, brain and spinal cord tumor, skull-based tumor. His interest in a cerebrovascular point of view, aneurysm surgery, or spine surgery like degenerative surgery, minimum invasive spine surgery. His career objective is to be able to carry out neurosurgical procedure with minimal morbidity and benefit the patient in the maximum possible way. To become a skillful neurosurgeon and execute the dedication for the cause of the humanity. I welcome Dr. Dhaval Patel on this topic.
Start. May we have the slides, please? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, already gone, for giving me opportunity to for speaking. Today's my topic is on the recent trend in management of acute hemorrhagic stroke, and specifically for general physician aspect. We'll go and follow the chronology of definition, epidemiology, classification, pathophysiology, risk factor, clinical presentation, diagnosis, and pharmacological and surgical treatment. First, I want to go for definition. What is stroke? A stroke is a medical emergency in which the blood supply to any portion of the brain is interrupted or reduced. It has alternative names is cerebrovascular accident or disease, or cerebral infarction or cerebral hemorrhage. Coming to the epidemiology, stroke is the leading cause of adult disabilities and the second leading cause of death worldwide. Third leading cause of death in US and India. Stroke can be divided into the hemorrhagic and ischemic origin, in which 13% is hemorrhagic and 87% is the ischemic. Coming to the classification, stroke is mainly divided into the ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke, and ischemic stroke is further subdivided into the thrombotic stroke and embolic stroke. Many of the neurophysicians deal with this ischemic stroke. Neurosurgeon has to be deal with the hemorrhagic stroke. Hemorrhagic stroke is further subdivided into the intracerebral hemorrhage and subarachnoid hemorrhage. I will discuss chronologically, first by the intracerebral hemorrhage and followed by subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is the diagrammatic picture of the ischemic stroke, in which obstruction or the blockage of the blood flow to the part of brain, it is called as ischemic stroke. And in hemorrhagic stroke, when the weakening of the vessel wall, it will rupture and causing the bleeding to the brain. Coming to the pathophysiology of the hemorrhagic stroke, it is usually occurs spontaneously and caused by vascular rupture with the bleeding into the brain, and which lead to the further mass effect and cause bleeding and hematoma expansion from the neighboring blood vessels. Hematoma growth over several hours following presentation of the symptom is quite common, and it is seen in nearly 30 to 40%. This type of hemorrhage commonly occur at the basal ganglia, thalamus, pons, or cerebellum, and commonly found in the hypertensive patient. This is a diagrammatic picture of the intracerebral hemorrhage, in which first we can see the bleed into the lateral ventricle. This is a brain, axial section. This is the left part of the brain, this is right part of the brain, and this is the right side of the basal ganglia, in which small initial hemorrhage is there. But when the time goes and bleeding and hypertension is continue, then further hematoma size increasing and the hemorrhage of the size is increased, which eventually lead to the mass effect, and we can see this axial section and so the initial effacement of the ventricle. If further hematoma expands and hypertension persistent, then this hematoma can extend up to the ventricle, and intraventricular hemorrhage is presentation is there, and which lead to the rise in intracranial pressure and the uncal herniation of the brain will be there. So coming to the etiology of the intracerebral hemorrhage, it is basically divided into the two types. It is first is primary and the second is secondary. Primary, in which we know the hypertension is the most common symptoms, and the hypertension is most common cause, and other is the drugs, cigarette smoking, and the moderate to alcoholic use. Secondary symptoms, in which we don't know the exact cause. In that condition, vascular malformation, AVM, aneurysm, cavernous angioma is quite common. Hemorrhage secondary to ischemic infarct, hemorrhage into the tumor, coagulopathy, cerebrovenous sinus thrombosis, vasculitis, and the moya disease we have to rule out. Now coming to clinical signs and symptoms, we have to learn to recognize the sign of the stroke. In that condition, we have to act fast. Fast means F for the face. In that condition, if you found facial drooping or facial deviation, A for arm means any weakness in the arm or any neurological deficit. S for the speech, difficulty in speaking. These are the common symptoms of the stroke, and at that time, we have to don't waste the time and we have to act immediately. So stroke has other common symptoms like headache, mental changes of the confusion, disorientation, memory impairment, aphasia specifically if the left part of the brain is involvement, respiratory problem if patient having the posterior fossa hemorrhage and the involvement of the pons, brainstem is there, decreased cough or swallow reflex if posterior fossa is involvement, agnosia, incontinence, and the seizure if frontal lobe involvement is there. Hemiparesis or hemiplegia, we can see classical lobar hemorrhage. Emotional liability is associated with the frontal lobe hemorrhage. Visual changes is seen in the occipital lobe of the hemorrhage. Other sign symptom like the vomiting, apraxia, and the hypertension is there. So at that time we have to go for the Glasgow coma scale and we have to accordingly act immediately. Glasgow coma is well known and familiar with everyone, and it has mainly three components: eye opening, verbal response, and the motor response. We have to assess and go for GCS, and we have to analyze it is the mild, moderate, and the severity of the intracerebral hemorrhage. If GCS is 3 to 8, then we have to act immediately without wasting our time. We have to first intubate patient, respiratory support, and control the hypertension, and we have to go further medical management. If moderate and the mild, we have additional time for assessing the patient and rule out the other causes. So this is the brain picture. Sorry. Excuse me, sir. Okay, this is the brain anatomy. This is a brain which is covered with the dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater, and in which we can see this is a subdural hemorrhage which is below the dura mater. Subarachnoid mater means the hemorrhage inside the subarachnoid mater. Lobar is a brain inside the brain. In ventricle, intraventricular hemorrhage. And the deep intracerebral hemorrhage, it is commonly associated with the left side basal ganglia bleed. So at that time, we have to act fast and directly call to our neurophysician or neurosurgeon without wasting our time. Coming to the diagnosis, hemorrhagic stroke, as I have told you, it is broadly divided into intracerebral hemorrhage and subarachnoid hemorrhage. For intracerebral hemorrhage, we have to go for CT or MRI, And subarachnoid hemorrhage, we have to go for angiobrain to rule out the aneurysm and AVM. ECG is the sign of the myocardial ischemia. We have to also go for ECG and other lab investigation like PT, INR, APDT and the CBC to rule out the other coagulation abnormality. If we can found the CT angiography is normal or MR angiography, we have further assessment which is called as DSA and it is called as invasive angiography, which can be, we have to go for if CT or MRI angio is normal and we are strongly suspecting it is aneurysm. This is a CT picture of the intracerebral hematoma. This is the frontal part of head, this is back part of the head, and it is a brain in which it is a left part and the right part. In left part there is a large hypertensive basal ganglia bleed is there, and we saw effacement of the ventricle on the left side of the brain, and just starting of the midline shift is there. So it is a dial emergency and we have to go for surgery in this case. These are the another radiological picture. We can differentiate it is subdural hematoma, epidural hematoma, subarachnoid hemorrhage and intracerebral hemorrhage. This is a CT brain picture first, in which this is left part, this is right part. We can see this crescent shape blood collection between the dura and arachnoid mater, and it is commonly found in the alcoholic patient and the elderly patient. We don't know some mode of mild head injury, and patient is presented with drowsiness, confusion and the severe headache. Second picture is epidural hematoma. It is biconvex in shape and the blood between the dura and skull. There is a tearing out due to the middle meningitis. It is mostly common into the trauma. It is not associated with the spontaneous case. Third picture is the subarachnoid hemorrhage. We are commonly found this type of patient when the spontaneous headache is there. We have to rule out aneurysm in this case by CT angio. Fourth picture is the intracerebral hematoma. This is the classical left side of the hypertensive bleed, which is commonly seen in the hypertensive patient. So, rupture of the abnormal artery in arterial hypertension is most common etiology in the 60% of the intracerebral hemorrhage. It is commonly associated with the thalamostriatal vein. This is the MRI picture of the basal ganglia and the thalamic hemorrhage on the right side. This is the intraventricular hemorrhage. We can see the ventricular hemorrhage inside the ventricle. CT angio or the MR angio we have to go through if we are suspecting the aneurysm or AV malformation. Other modality is the subarachnoid hemorrhage. In subarachnoid hemorrhage, rupture of the aneurysm we can found in the 60 to 70% cases, and the atrioveneral malformation is in the rare cases. If CT angio is normal, then we have to rule out the other anticoagulant or the thrombolytic and the hematological disorder. Accumulation of the blood inside the subarachnoid present is the result in the subarachnoid hemorrhage. The patient is classically present with the severe headache and early morning, that is called as thunderclamp headache. Also presented with the loss of consciousness, manageable symptoms like the neck stiffness, cunning sign, nausea, vomiting, photophobia. Also presented with the seizure, psychomotor excitation, reactive hypertension, hyperthermia, and the tachycardia. These are the CT scan picture, and we can see the blood inside this subarachnoid space, and it is diffusely spread out in the basal cisterns. In that case, we have to rule out the aneurysm. This is a angiographic picture of the CT brain. We can see the saccular aneurysm inside the blood vessels. Prognosis of the subarachnoid hemorrhage is associated with high fatality, which is ranging from 30% to 70% and depends upon the severity on initial presentation and the grading of the subarachnoid hemorrhage. Now coming to the treatment. For intracerebral hemorrhage, the general treatment approach is the mainstay of the ICH therapy is to treat the underlying cause when possible, and the general treatment approach is always patient specific on clinical condition. First, we have to stabilization of the vital sign and go for neurological examination. GC scale, pupillary examination, respiration, we have to all through go thoroughly. Followed by supportive care in the management of the seizure, blood pressure control, fever control, and anticoagulation correction if patient is some on anticoagulant. We have to go for the blood sugar control and followed by surgical or invasive intervention. Reversal of the coagulopathy we have to done if patient is on anticoagulant and alternate INR therapy. We have to first load with the anticonvulsant, and the levetiracetam, Aptoin, and the midazolam is the drug of choice nowadays. We have to control the blood pressure, and the target BP must be less than 140 millimeter Hg for better outcome. Otherwise, if hypertension is persistent, then further neurological deterioration will be there. Treatment of the rise intracranial patient. First, we have to do head end of the birth. Bed is elevated 30 degree. We have to give analgesia and mild sedation and give mannitol or 3% sodium to decrease the intracerebral hem, ICP. Now the indication of the surgery. If patient is presented with intraventricular hemorrhage, and this is the CT brain picture, this is left part, this is right part, this is ventricle, and we can see this hyperdensity of the blood inside this ventricle. It is called as intraventricular hemorrhage. This is purely intraventricular hemorrhage. In that case, we are going for the frontal borehole and putting this drain inside the ventricle to drain out all the ventricle. In that case, we do not have to go for craniotomy. It is called as ventriculostomy for the intraventricular hemorrhage. Second is the decompressive craniotomy for intracerebral hemorrhage. In that, this is a CT scan picture of the intracerebral hemorrhage. This is the left part and this is the right part. And in the left part, there is a hypertension bleed is there, and size of hematoma is very large, and we can see the midline shift is there. In this case, we have to go for surgical management, decompressive craniotomy, and evacuation of hematoma should be done. For patient presented with the supratendental lobar clots more than 30 cc within the 1 centimeter of surface with clinical deterioration, we should go for the craniotomy standard. Second is the subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is a CT scan picture of the subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is the left part of the brain, this is the right part of the brain. We can see the diffuse blood in the whole the brain system. This is a hemorrhage inside the basal system. In this case, we have to go for CT angio brain to rule out aneurysm. This is a CT angio picture of the brain angiography. In this, it is we can see the anterior cerebral artery, this is middle cerebral artery, and when in the frontal part both the anterior cerebral artery join, it is called as anterior communicating artery, and we can see this round valve structure, it is called as aneurysm. I am presenting one case study. This is a 60-year-old female presented with severe headache and vomiting aphasia and the right side weakness. And this is a pre-operative scan of the CT picture. This is the left part, this is the right part. And this basal system is associated with subarachnoid hemorrhage, and this is the intracerebral hematoma. In this case, I was suspecting it is an aneurysm, so I went for the CT angiography. And this is a DSA picture of the angiography, which shows the PCOM artery aneurysm. This is a carotid artery, ICA, bifurcation, MC and PCA, and this is a PCOM artery aneurysm. So I went for the clipping of that aneurysm. And this is a post-operative scan. This is the left part and right part. All the basal system were open and the hematoma is evacuated and the patient was uneventful. The second case, in this is also aneurysm, angio clipping. Now the intraoperative angiograph with the advanced microscope is the recent trend of the management. In that case, we are doing clipping, and intraoperatively we are doing angiogram to check that is there any another vessel was clipped or not. After clipping, we are doing intraoperative angiogram to check that is there any vessel is not involvement in the clipping, so we can do further better management in this case. This is the intraoperative angiogram picture. This is the preoperative picture of the aneurysm, and it is followed by clipping. And during surgery, we are doing the angiogram to check that vessel is properly occluded or not, or aneurysm is properly occluded or not. Another option is the coiling. If patient is all the aneurysm feature is fit in the coiling, then we can also give the option of the coiling to the patient. If spontaneous intracerebral hemorrhage is there, and if angio shows the atriovenous malformation, in this case, this is the artery and vein, and this is a nidus picture, and this is an abnormal atriovenous malformation in this case. And this is the intraoperative picture of the atriovenous malformation. And this venous AVM is totally excluded is the key of the treatment. Now the prognostic marker for the intracerebral hemorrhage, it is divided into the GC scale of the patient, age, location, intracerebral hemorrhage volume, it is associated with intracellular ventricular blood or not. Then ICS score is divided. It is categorized up to 0 to 6 point. If it is 0 to 0, 1 to grade, then it is associated with less than 30% mortality, and it is associated with the 4, 5, 6, then it is associated with the higher mortality ranges. So overall prognostic of intracerebral hemorrhage with the poor prognostic factor when intracerebral hemorrhage is large or deep lesion, depth of the consciousness, very low GCS, flexion or extension to painful stimuli, and the good prognostic feature is when the hematoma is small and the superficial hematoma and the conscious patient. Overall mortality range from 55 to 65% and 90% if the patient is the deep coma and the GCS is there. Thank you.
We have till 5 minutes. Any question? Dr. Dhaval, one question from my point of view. In a patient of a subacute hemorrhage, if patient is a traumatic SAH, there is any role of nimodipine? Or second question, what is the difference between oral nimodipine as compared to IV nimodipine?
As such, in the study trial show that traumatic as subarachnoid hemorrhage nimodipine has no rule. And recent study shows that oral versus IV nimodipine has equal efficacy. So we can use oral, and nowadays IV nimodipine is not frequently available in the hospital. So in that case, we are using the oral nimodipine, sir. Many more times we are encountered that when we have to go for CT scan or MRI of the brain patient. Because sometime in casualty, patient is coming with the altered sensorium and the consciousness. We are going for the MRI brain, then we found it is a intracerebral hemorrhage, and then we are further going for the CT brain. So my proper advice is that when in emergency patient, we have to look for that patient is conscious or unconscious. If patient is conscious and is associated with the neurological deficit, we have to don't wasting the time, and we have to directly go for the CT brain. And if patient is conscious and associated with neurological deficit, in this case stroke is there, ischemic, so we have to go for MRI in that case. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? We have a couple of minutes. Okay, I think then we can proceed for the next question. Thank you, Dhaval bhai.
Felicitation has to be done.
Yeah.
We request Dr. Mahendra Bhai Patel.
एक second.